Hi Gandhi class, welcome to your third maths lesson for this week. And our learning objective for today's lesson is, can I read and interpret information from pictograms? So in today's lesson, we are going to be learning to explain what a pictogram shows, to locate key information in a pictogram, and to use the pictogram to answer questions. But before we begin, I want you to have a go at answering these questions on your mini whiteboard. So pause the video here to answer these 4 questions and press play when you're ready to go through the answers. Okay, so let's have a look at question number 1. Now, question number 1 says, how many more children play football than rugby? Now, we've got a pictogram here, and the first thing we need to do when we look at this pictogram is look at the key. So we know for every circle we see, it means it's 10 children. Now we're looking at the difference between football and rugby. So let's have a look here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we've got a half. Now, because it's a half, it means it's going to be half of this number here, which is going to be 5. So that there represents 5. And then here is rugby. We've got 1, 2, 3. So what we're going to need to do is we need to see how many children chose football or play football, sorry, and then take how many play rugby away from it. So let's count up in tens. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, add 5 is 55. And then 10, 20, 30. And now what we need to do is take 30 away from 55. 5 take away 0 stays as 5. 5 take away 3 is 2. So that means 25 is our answer. Give yourself a tick if you got that correct. Question number 2. Write 682 pence in pounds and pence. Now you need to use your knowledge here of knowing that £1 is the same as 100 pence. So your answer should be £6.82. Give yourself a tick if you got that correct. Now the next one says divide 48 by 2. So you're going to be doing 48 divided by or shared by 2. So you could have either drawn 2 circles and shared 48 into them, or you could see that half of 8 is 4, half of 4 is 2, and then that gives you 24. So give yourself a tick if you got that correct. And the next one says find the sum of 342 and 189. Now this might be a little bit difficult if you don't know what this word here means. By the sum, we mean you need to add. So here you need to have done 342 add 189. Then you would have added them together. So 2 add 9 makes 11, and you carry the 10 over here. 4 add 8 makes 12, add 1 makes 13, carry the 10 over, carry the 100 over, and then 3 add 1 is 4, add 1 more is 5. So your answer should be 531. Give yourself a tick if you got that correct. Okay, so let's have a go at answering these questions about the pictogram. Now, the first thing we need to do with this pictogram is have a look at the key, because that holds really important information for us here. We know that whenever we see an apple, it represents 10. Okay, let's answer the first question. So the first question says, how many pieces of fruit were eaten in total? Now this question is asking us to add up how many pieces of fruit there are here. But remember, you've got your key to think about. So there are 2 ways we could do this. We could count up how many pieces of fruit there are and times it by 10. Or because we know that it's worth 10, we can count up in tens and tick off each piece of fruit as we go. Now you may have noticed that we have got a half an apple here and half an apple here. Now that means because there's half an apple here, half a picture of it, it means it's going to be half of whatever is here. And half of 10 is what? Well done, it's 5. So what we can do is we can leave these ones to the end and then add them in once we've counted up, because we're going to count up in tens. So let's do that together. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, 180, 190. We've got 5 here, so 195, and another 5 here, 200. So there are 200 pieces of fruit eaten in total. Okay, let's have a look at the next question. So the next question says, how many pears were eaten? So where are we going to be looking on our pictogram? Well done, we're going to be looking here. Now we know that when we see that apple, it represents 10. And if we see half of that apple, it represents 5. So let's count how many pieces of pears were eaten. So we've got 10, 20, and then we've got a 5. So altogether, 25 pears were eaten. Okay, let's have a look at the next question. So the next question says, how many apples and grapes were eaten in total? Now, because of that wording of that sentence, it's asking us to add together how many apples and grapes were eaten. So we're going to be looking at this one here and this one here. So let's count in tens, because we know whenever we see this apple, it represents 10. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. So we know that 80 apples and grapes were eaten in total. Now again, you could have just counted the pictures and then times it by 10, but it's quite easy to count up in tens, so it's quicker for us to count up in tens there. Okay, let's have a go at the last question. So, how many more apples were eaten than bananas? What's this question asking us to do? Pause the video and have a think. Well done. It's asking us to find the difference between apples and bananas. So we'll be looking at these two here. So let's count up how many apples we have first, and then count up how many bananas we have, and then we'll subtract the amount of bananas from the amount of apples. So we've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 apples. And now let's count up how many bananas. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. We've got a half, so it's 55. So now we need to subtract. So we can't do 0 take away 5 because 0 is smaller than 5. So we're going to borrow from our tens, and that then becomes a 5. That becomes a 10. 10 take away 5 is 5. Then 5 take away 5 is 0. So 5 more apples were eaten than bananas. And you could also use the pictogram to help you by having a look at the amount of pictures. We can see that there is the same amount here, and then when we get to the last one, we are missing 5. So we could just take off 5 from there. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. So Year 3 have gathered information about their favourite animals. Use the information to complete the pictogram. So before we do anything, let's have a look at our key. We can see that every time we see a triangle, that represents 6 votes, which means if we have a triangle that's in half, that's going to represent 3 votes. Okay, now let's have a look at the first one. So the first one says, twice as many children voted for dogs as rabbits. So if we have a look at our pictogram, we can see that we've already got the rabbits on there. So each one is worth 6, which means here we've got 6, 12, 18 rabbits. Just note that there so we know. Now we know twice as many children voted for dogs, which means we are going to double what we have here. So we need to draw those 3 triangles first. And then we're going to put 3 more on because it's doubled. And that's our first question done. Now let's have a look at the next one. So the next one says 15 children voted for horses. So how many triangles do you think we're going to be drawing? Pause the video to have a think. Okay, so the easiest thing to do is draw triangles, knowing that they're worth 6 until we get to 15. So in the horses column, we've got 6, add another 6 makes 12. But if we add another 6, we'd get to 18, and we want 15. So what are we going to do? Pause the video and have a think. Well done, we're going to draw half a triangle because that represents 3. So we've got 6, 12, add 3 gives us 15. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. So the next one says 6 more children voted for tigers than rabbits. So let's have a look at our rabbits. As we said, we have got 18 here and we need to add 6. So we've got 1, 2, 3 triangles, 6 more children voted for tigers. So we just need to add 1 more triangle on. So we need to draw the 3, 1, 2, 3, and then because 6 more children voted, we need to add another triangle. Okay, and now the last question. So the last one says 21 children voted for cats. How many triangles do you think we're going to be drawing? Pause the video to have a think. Okay, let's work it out together. So we're going to draw triangles knowing that they are worth 6 until we get to 21. So we've got 6, 12, 18. But if we add another 6, it takes us to 24. So what are we going to do? Well done, we're going to draw half a triangle because that represents 3, and then that takes us up to 21. Well done. Okay, information has been gathered about favourite sports in the school. The astronauts are discussing the key that they could use in the pictogram. So they're talking about what symbol, what their symbol is going to represent, how much is it going to represent. So we've got swimming 8, tennis 14, dance 12, football 16, tag rugby 6, and other 4. The red astronaut says that his symbol would equal 1. The green astronaut says the symbol will equal 2. And the pink astronaut says the symbol is going to equal 4. Now we need to say who we agree with and why. So what I want you to do now, pause the video and have a think about who you agree with, but why do you agree with them as well? So pause the video to have a go. Okay, so I'll start off by saying that I don't agree with the red astronaut, and that's because we would then have to draw, if we look at our highest number, 16 of these pictures, and that would just be too much. So I would say here, I don't agree with the red astronaut because if the symbol equaled 1, we would be drawing a lot of the symbols, as 16 is our highest number. So that's why I don't agree with the red astronaut. So that means it's between the green and the pink. Now what we can do here is have a look and see all of these numbers. Now all of these numbers are divisible by 2, which means that they would all fit quite nicely into 2 if the symbol represented 2. Whereas not all of them would fit nicely into 4. They are not divisible by 4, which means we'd have to draw half symbols. So I would say that I'm going to agree with the green astronaut because they're all easily divided by 2 without having to draw half symbols. So I agree with the green astronaut because all of the numbers are able to be divided by 2 without having to draw half symbols. Whereas with 4, you would have to draw half symbols. So this here would be my answer for that one. Okay, now it's your turn. You need to choose between activity 1, activity 2, and activity 3, and then you can challenge yourself further with the challenge questions. So, activity number 1. Answer the questions about the pictogram. Again, look at your key. That's the first thing you need to do. So for every circle you see, you know it represents 4 cars, which means if you see a half circle like this, it's going to represent 2 cars. Okay, so you have got parts A, B, C, D, E, F, and G to this question. So what does the key show? Which colour car was seen the most? Which colour car was seen the least? How many cars were seen in total? How many more black cars were seen than red cars? How many black and blue cars were seen in total? And how many more white cars were seen than silver? Pause the video here if you are answering activity number 1. Okay, activity number 2, you need to complete the pictogram. So again, look at the key. You know, for every square you see, it's worth 8 votes. So if you see half a square, what's it going to be worth? 4, well done. So the news agents record how many of the different types of magazines and newspapers they sold in a day. Complete the pictogram using the information given. We know altogether 40 newspapers were sold. Gardening magazines sold the fewest copies. Twice as many comics were sold as gardening magazines. Half as many sports magazines were sold as newspapers. 8 more music magazines were sold than gardening magazines. And then how many of each newspaper or magazine were sold and how many were sold in total? So you need to use the information here to fill in the pictogram to then answer these questions below. Now, when you're drawing your pictogram, please make sure that you are using a ruler. Okay, activity number 3, you are going to draw a pictogram for the information below. The information shows favourite sports at school. Now, it doesn't have a key, which means you need to choose a key. So what key would you choose? When you are drawing your pictogram, please make sure that you are using a ruler. Pause the video here if you are completing activity number 3. Okay, and the challenge. So question 7, true or false? The pictogram below shows the results of the tally chart. Explain your answer. So you would say, yes, it does because, or no, it doesn't because. Question 8. Evie is drawing a pictogram where one picture represents 10 children. Evie knows more children like daisies than daffodils, but fewer children like daisies than roses. You need to complete the pictogram using this information here to help you. And the last one, Mary draws a pictogram to show Key Stage 2's favourite type of PE. Each child voted once. Number of children means that one picture equals 3 children. So each one of these equals 3 children. A third of the number of children that voted gym voted games. Is she correct? Explain your answer. So you would say, yes, she is, because. No, she isn't, because. Please make sure you upload your work to Tapestry Gandhi class, and I will see you next time. Bye.